Good afternoon, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a good day and God bless you. Let's get into the news. Judiciary Democrats go after GOP whistleblowers, and FBI pros. House Judiciary Democrats claimed on Friday that the three witnesses who have spoken to Republicans as part of the GOP investigation into the politicization at the FBI have offered no evidence of wrongdoing by the law enforcement agency. They also said the witnesses were connected to committee Republicans through people with ties to President Trump. Republicans have asserted that they've spoken to dozens and dozens of whistleblowers as part of their probe. But the committee Democrats said the trio of witnesses it had identified had little first-hand knowledge about the FBI and were instead advancing, quote, conspiracy theories. Quote, the three individuals we have met are not, in fact, whistleblowers. These individuals who put forward a wide range of conspiracy theories did not present actual evidence of any wrongdoing at the Department of Justice or the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The committee Democrats wrote in a more than 300-page report released on Friday. Republicans say their committee members have spoken with more individuals, including those who reached out previously, but Democrats have access to the three formal interviews conducted since the GOP won power. Quote, these interviews also reveal the active engagement and orchestration of disturbing outside influence on the witnesses and potentially the Republican members of the Select Subcommittee. A network of organizations led by former Trump administration officials appear to have identified these witnesses, provided them with financial compensation, and found them employment after they left the FBI. The Democrats wrote, it is unusual for a committee to reveal the substance of private transcribed interviews, something Democrats acknowledged by saying it is not a tactic they would use, quote, in the ordinary course of business. The decision to do so drew fire from Republicans on the panel. Quote, it is beyond disappointing but sadly not surprising that Democrats would leak cherry-picked excerpts of testimony to attack the brave whistleblowers who risked their careers to speak out on abuses at the Justice Department and FBI. The same Democrats vowed to fight our oversight tooth and nail, and they are willing to undermine the work of the Congress to achieve their partisan goals, said Russell-Died spokesman for the chair Jim Jordan. Representative Matt Gaetz, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, accused Democrats of obstructing the GOP investigation in a speech at CPAC. On Friday, quote, if the Democrats are going to obstruct our investigation, then I'm calling to remove the Democrats from our investigation. They shouldn't be allowed to sit in and hear the evidence that they are going to use that to try to get in the way of a thorough, rigorous oversight. Michael Flynn sues government over wrongful and malicious prosecution. Retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn on Friday filed a suit against the federal government seeking damages over what he called Washington, D.C. as wrongful and malicious prosecution of him, quote, as a direct and proximate result of defendants' actions. General Flynn suffered harm, his attorneys wrote in a filing with the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Florida. It continues, quote, he was falsely branded as a traitor to his country, lost at least tens of millions of dollars in business opportunities and future lifetime earning potential, was maliciously prosecuted, and spent a substantial funds in his own defense. Flynn's complaint stems from the Department of Justice persecution of him over a 2017 interview with the FBI. He initially pled guilty but requested to withdraw from the plea agreement after the emergence of evidence. Flynn was eventually pardoned after the DOJ asked to dismiss the charges against him. The filing names the United States of America as a defendant. Flynn is seeking compensation damages to be determined by the court, but that he expects to exceed $50 million. In addition to his legal fees and any other court-determined relief. Flynn's attorney chided the federal government for its, quote, potentially motivated persecution of an American hero. And added, quote, what the deep state did to General Flynn, it should never be done to another American ever. Perry threatens to take action against agencies that don't comply with GOP oversight requests. Speaking at the Conservative Political Action Committee's 2023 conference in Washington, Representative Scott Perry threatened repercussions against government agencies that do not work with Republicans on their investigations. The lawmaker conveyed his belief that the American government is attacking the nation's sovereignty, state sovereignty and personal sovereignty, quote, they've got to be put on notice. They've got to be quaking in fear. They've got to be losing weight because they're not eating because they're worried that they're going to end up in jail for using the awesome power of the federal government. Perry said of the Biden administration officials pushing for more regulations on Americans. The congressman promised to use the government to make his political opposition afraid, quote, And if they're not interested in showing up in Mr. Jordan's hearing, you know what, I'm in charge of the Transportation Committee of Federal Leases, suggesting that he would use his power to punish his political opponents via their office space. It continues, quote, "That's something I wonder whose leases might become while we're taking a look at the list," he said to applause from the crowd. He said that people should stand up for their states and their own right to self-govern. Quote, "Our personal sovereignty is what this nation was built on. And it is under assault by every single facet of the government," he said. I didn't administration make stunning admission on climate agenda in leaked internal memo. The Biden administration acknowledged in a memo accidentally leaked this week that charging fossil fuel companies less to drill would provide greater energy security, despite its plan. Former Bureau of Ocean Energy Management Director Amanda Lefton recommended late last year that as part of its climate agenda, the Department of the Interior move forward with higher royalty fees for an oil and gas lease sale, spending over 950,000 acres off the coast of Alaska. DOE Assistant Secretary Laura Daniel Davis ultimately signed off on the recommendation, quote, "If a prospect would be developed, there would be additional government revenues and greater energy security for the state of Alaska, especially if development of natural gas resources in the land improve the long-term supply challenges facing the area." Lefton wrote in the memo, quote, "Nevertheless, because of the serious challenges facing the nation from climate change and the impact of greenhouse gases from fossil fuels, we are not recommending this option since it would not include an appropriate surcharge to account for those impacts." Lefton specifically recommended the federal government charge drillers with a royalty fee of 18.75% as opposed to the alternative of 16%, which she said would attract more bids and, quote, "be more likely to facilitate expeditious and orderly development of offshore resources." Daniel Davis stated in her record of the decision published in November, after she signed off on his recommendation, that she selected a fee of 18.75%, quote, "because this rate constitutes the most reasonable balancing of environmental and economic factors for the American public." She did not, however, mention the alternative would produce greater energy security as highlighted in the memo. Quote, "I am appalled by the memo's contents, which make it crystal clear that this administration is literally putting the radical climate agenda ahead of the needs of the people of Alaska and the United States," Senator Joe Manchin said. And then some significant news, folks. It's always interesting when you hear these stories about a Democratic politician being arrested for heinous, vile criminal activity. And CNN says Maryland mayor resigns after being arrested on more than 50 counts of, and then it's a mayoral or a mayor in Maryland. Okay. NBC for Washington College Park May or a restaurant 56 counts of possession distribution of Times College Park mayor has resigned over. Okay. So now you have Maryland Democrat Washington Examiner Democratic mayor arrested on. Okay. So you have a really despicable individual mayor of College Park, Maryland resigned from office and was arrested on charges on Thursday. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name. So I'm just you can read it for yourself. 47 was arrested on 14 counts of possession and 16 counts of distribution. Absolutely despicable. And he's a Democrat. Now, there are Republicans and Democrats who have engaged in this vile, sinister, evil, criminal activity. The past year, there have been a number of people associated with cable television. CNN, so it will say, are associated with the Democratic Party, more so than the Republican Party. Okay. If it was a Trump Republican, you would hear about it throughout all news. Every news agency publication, you'd hear about it. What they do with Democrats. This is why Democrats like media. People don't trust media. 70% of Americans do not trust media. When it is a Democratic mayor, you have CNN saying, well, Maryland mayor, College Park mayor, NBC for Washington. But Maryland is a blue state. Every once in a while you'll have a Republican governor in a blue state, but he'll be like a never-Trumper and not really a Republican in this day and age. Okay. You won't really be a Republican. They never Trumper is that there's really the Republican Party is Trump. So that's a whole other story. Thank God. Okay. We have a Republican Party now that is anti-endless military conflict. Unlike the Paul Ryans and the Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Republicans, Lincoln Project Republicans. But and talk about Lincoln Project, one of their founders is also implicated in this type of thing. Although not exactly. this. Other improprieties. But anyway, Maryland Democratic mayor arrested. This is pretty disgusting. Unbelievable too, and according to certain reports, he was very close to top Democrats in Biden's administration. We'll leave it at that. But this is really just this is about the fourth or fifth. You had an Arizona state senator. The mayor abruptly sent his resignation letter to the city council after business hours Wednesday, mentioning the Tuesday police search by saying he had cooperated fully. Oh my God. This is the new cooperated fully is now the new excuse for Democrats, though. Well, Biden's cooperating fully was cooperating fully. This person, the Democrat in Maryland, arrested for distributing and possession of really the most evil thing you could ever owe. It's what a cooperate. Oh, well, as long as we just cooperated fully. You know. I'm one more who you ask for, not like Trump who didn't cooperate. Anyway, and, quote, I'm stepping away to deal with my own mental health. And there we go. I ask that you continue to keep Magana. It's unbelievable too, because most Americans don't realize the Democratic mayor. Again, you might say, well, what's the difference with the Democratic mayor? Well, this is happening more so within the Democratic Party. We can go into it. But there was the Arizona, like I said, Arizona state senator, really a lot of really bizarre things taking place within the Democratic Party. But again, you have an entire public relations machine, you have an entire public relations, media monstrosity, okay, that Democratic donor from New York, who gave money to Democrats primarily for decades. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Give me your thoughts below and hit subscribe.